All right. All right, perfect. Thank you for your patience there. We'll go ahead and get started with our first bill.
Move that we place Bill 3372 on its first reading by title and description only.
Motion was made by Alderman Flores, seconded by Alderman Gardner to place Bill number 3372 on its first reading by title and description only. All those in favor?
An ordinance amending the zoning code and official map by changing the zoning classification of certain property bordered by South Selmore Road to the northwest.
All right, Mr. Smith. We've lost connection out there.
The request is to rezone the property in R1C. Property is approximately 78 acres in size. Property is currently vacant. The R1C zoning would allow for lots of 10,000 square feet. There are no overlay districts that affect this property. There is an identified trail corridor that shall be included within the plating of the final plat of this property. There are environmental features such as wetlands, riverines, and floodplains that have been identified on our mapping system and shall be further reviewed and permitted by the appropriate agency. The existing water and sewer system has capacity and shall be extended to the site to serve this development by the developer. The applicant has identified, has been coordinating with the road districts for future improvements of these properties. The conference plan does note this property with the future land use of mixed use. The property is surrounded by residential agricultural uses. Single-family residential would be an appropriate use within this area. Based on staff reports and staff's findings, staff did recommend approval of this application. As you may be aware, during the planning and zoning meeting, the signed petition of opposition and restrictive covenants were presented to the commission. Staff has evaluated those items and provided their findings to you. In regards to the restrictive covenants, and by their own terms, they do not prevent the zoning or preliminary plat application that you have in front of you this evening. The proposed applications do not conflict with those covenants and do not extend beyond the tracts that are under the ownership of the applicant. Regarding the signed petitions, staff has calculated and evaluated those signatures in accordance with the state statute. In staff's findings, the signatures received do not meet the minimum 30% threshold that is required. That would result in the Board of Alderman having a 2/3 majority of vote for approval of both of those applications for zoning. The Planning and Zoning Commission did recommend approval 4-2.
Board comments. We don't have question, concern this time. Just 1 second. That's not. All right. In absence of that microphone, we'll just request that you speak loud and clear if you give your name and address to the clerk. Good. That will help.
Okay, sounds good.
Yes, sir.
My name is Ricky Haas with Olson Engineering. We're doing the engineering for this project. My address is 550 St. Louis in Springfield, Missouri. So as mentioned, we're looking to do 10,000 square foot lots on this property. The first two cases you're hearing are the rezoning. So we're rezoning the two parcels that the first phase is on. So the developer owns a large parcel of property that continues to the east. We aren't looking to develop that at this time. When that development, if it ever does happen, we'll be back in front of you talking about that. I want to make clear that we're just looking at the first phase right now. As mentioned, 10,000 square foot lots. When we get into the preliminary plat, you'll see that the total first phase acreage, about a number of lots, is really only about 2.5 lots per acre. And then, as mentioned, this in the comprehensive plan is mixed use. We feel like this single family zoning, the less intense use than mixed use, generally less traffic, less stormwater, all those types of things. We'll get into the traffic and stormwater and utilities, and all the other intricacies when we talk about the preliminary plat for these first two cases. I'm going to keep it strictly about the zoning. And with that, that's all I have as far as the rezoning goes. I'd be happy to answer any questions you want to have.
Questions from the board? You may call me back up. Is there anyone in the audience here to speak on behalf of this project? In favor? In favor of the project? Sure. Please come forward. Name and address to the clerk, please.
The Ozark Central Road District. I sent a letter, dated not too long ago, to hopefully Mayor Jackson and Mr. Cameron Smith in reference to clarity. Just want to clarify with the Ozark Central Road District specifically what the motion was at our regular meeting on January 11th. And the motion specifically was to accept the natural bridges estate stage 1 design concept phase at this at the time, January 11th. If the developer completes the proper road improvements from Wisconsin up to Minnesota Road and out to Selmore Road, if these improvements are brought up to the city of Ozark or Christian County road standards, whichever property, you guys are going to be annexing at that time. So that's why the motion is that. Depending on the specific location, obviously. The other thing I wanted to clarify coming here tonight specifically is that maybe there was a comment made about the Ozark Central Road District making a cul-de-sac on this Sunday, and that is specifically not. We have no intention to make a cul-de-sac. So there was a conversation about possibly dead-ending the roadway or so. Because specifically the site distance on Selmore to the immediate south with a little hill, and maybe got 200 feet, and it's less than 75 or 100 feet of site distance at the speeds of vehicles that are traveling on Selmore Road. The other thing was that there was also discussions about possibly doing improvements to Wisconsin and Selmore. Specifically because I don't know if everybody's been down there, but that is kind of not really a 45-degree angle, it's like a 35-degree angle looking to the south, northbound cars. I actually talked to Miranda over at the county in reference to maybe possibly making that a 90-degree. My problem was that OSRD is going to have to violate make that a 90-degree because we have to take the western part property, west of Selmore, to make that a 90 as people are making left-hand turns. So, but there was a discussion on that because the commissioners at the time, Mike Boots on, did specifically like the angle that this development was going to, their traffic possibly going to enter out on Selmore and increase that with the left-hand first, right-hand turn to the left. Side distance was, and not only that, speeds around. So, yeah, to answer your question, so that just makes some clarification as to what our motion specifically was, as to what we were requesting of the developer.
May I have questions?
What were the improvements that you were going to see for this? On Wisconsin. That is basically one way. It has to be 2 ways to widen. The question was that when I've gone down there with river engineering, it really does not appear that there is enough right of way to be widening that. Specifically, what the developer is going to be addressing and how he's going to create that. But I can tell you that north of Minnesota and up to Selmore, that specific road, you've got those houses immediately on the west side of the road. And that fence line, I'm guessing is probably where the right of way is. And Mike and I, Katie, were at home out there. And I got to tell you, we just don't have really a lot of questions. But I want to make a 22-foot road. Which, if that's designated as a county, that's what the requirement would be. Is that the easement they have over there? Yes.
Okay.
OSRD is not heard from the developer.
That's the issues, problems. Any other area, specifically south of Minnesota, on Wisconsin, I don't know if you've seen that. That's basically a one-way road also. There are trees on a lot of trees on the western side of that road. There is openness towards that east side. So I don't know if it's specifically taking that and if that encompasses their that development. That's how it's right. Mr. Jordan?
This question really isn't for you, Chris, but I think more for Mr. Smith. Since we're only dealing with annexation and zoning tonight, all of the road improvements, if any, access points, all of that would be at the plating process, right?
Yes, just to clarify to that note, annexation is completed more, it's already annexed in the city, so we're only dealing with this application zoning. We have a second zoning application, so Mr. Summer's comments, yes, that will be further addressed and more broadly applied to the plating. It's great to hear that now, so I have that information.
Any other questions, Mr. Summers?
Thanks, sir.
All right, is there anyone else here speaking in favor of this? Zoning? Any in opposition?
Greetings. Yes, this is Ron, it's game 176 Minnesota. A couple of things I just wanted to address during the planning and zoning meeting. Randy made me familiar with Jeff Garrison. Yeah, they're going to do Garrison. Absolutely, start figure two. He made a comment that he had a problem accepting this as an R1C. And he detailed the types of land that are surrounding this proposed neighborhood. Right now, 107 homes. Of course, we've been told that this is only going to deal, what we're talking about right now is just for the phase one. But the whole point of planning is to look forward to what could potentially happen with the additional 300 acres, I believe it is up there. And certainly, there's going to be a lot of impact there. I'm sure all of you are familiar with the comprehensive plan. Is that required reading for you? The city of Ozark comprehensive plan. Does everybody have to read that?
We do.
Okay. Oh, okay. Well, I'm glad you're interested in it. One of the things what Jeff was, in my understanding was he said, we have a couple of other options that we can make for this land that would reduce the population density, being R1A and R1B. R1C, according to page 21 of your comprehensive plan, says a similar R1B, but a really higher density, usually close to central business districts. I don't know if any of y'all have driven in this particular area, but there's not a central business district there. And when we look at the density of homes that could potentially be there after phase one, but including phase one, there's a lot of impact that can happen from that. In this same report, it says Ozark projected population in 20 years, approximately 26,551 by 2038. Ozark only needs 631 new dwellings in the next 20 years, which is 82 housing units per year to accommodate this growth. During the past 5 years, which was prior to 2019, the city averaged 103 single-family houses per year. However, since 2019, even in just the last few planning and zoning meetings, there have been, I believe, 3 or 4 other subdivisions that have been upgraded on that are hundreds of houses more than you're talking about in your own growth development. So it says when planning for future development, it is not to consider the relation between development types and the adjoining streets. If any of you have driven out there, is it okay to approach the TV screen? Sure. Okay. So, let's see, this is pretty close view. So there's Wisconsin and Minnesota Road. Could you look down just a little bit towards the middle? Thank you. So right at that intersection of Wisconsin and Minnesota was the area that was being addressed earlier. That triangle there that is bordered on two sides is my property. Now, when the representative for National Bridge was in the planning and zoning meeting, he very confidently stated what they were going to be doing with the roads. He didn't say it's still in planning. He didn't say, well, we're going to do this later. He said what they were going to do was to build a cul-de-sac where Minnesota meets Selmore Road, and that they were going to use the property to the east to widen the road and make a sidewalk. Now, of course, that's in the meeting minutes. You can watch on the YouTube video as well. However, I'll tell you, when I talked to the Ozark Road Commission, and I specifically asked, what do you mean by a cul-de-sac on that area? He said it's going to be a turnaround. I said, what is a turnaround? He said, well, you'll have to contact Ozark Special Road District about that. Well, I did. Ozark Special Road District, I believe it's a 100-foot circle or perhaps a 110-foot circle that we required there. So that's what he confidently said was going to happen. Also, I spoke with Mary Newton, who owns the land on the west side of that road. And she had not been contacted by anybody at that time. I don't know if that's happened at this point, but by then, when he very confidently said all of the road development to widen this to 2 lanes plus a sidewalk is going to be done towards the east, that homeowner had not been informed. Additionally, the road district asked that it would be made into, or suggested that it would be into a 90-degree intersection with Selmore Road, which would take even more property either from Mary or from the people who own that little tight corner right there. If you've ever driven out of that area, they let the grass grow 4 feet tall. I don't know what kind of feet they are, but you cannot see even now to pull out of there with a train. Now, I know that Randy Long's line, this little garage right there on the north side of Minnesota Road, belongs to Randy Long. A 100-foot circle at the end of that road would either take his property from or would all be done on my side. And I'll guarantee you, no one has talked to me about there being a cul-de-sac there. And then speaking with the road district, he said they're not going to be making a cul-de-sac. There never was a plan to have the city of Ozark paid and have that road done. Where I come from, that's a lot. I don't know, this is political, and this may be, hey, maybe he didn't phrase it properly, but for the planning and zoning board to have approved of this based on what he said was going to happen on that road was based on a complete fallacy. Because as far as I know, none of that is set in stone. So how can you make a decision on that? And the other thing is the potential of R1C to add families to our school districts, to our, under the lease purview and such, is going to increase exponentially. And when I brought up the fact that there could be up to 1,400 homes there, as far as I know, when we look at the R1C designation for the entire property, that's going to be more kids than our high schools, can handle in their current formulation. The city of Ozark has spent $104 million on high school in the last 10, 11 years, and yet we still don't have all our high school students in one building. When I brought this up to planning and zoning, I believe it was the representative of Natural Bridge, excuse me. I asked someone that worked in the education area, he's a teacher, about that, and he said that the road on Old Prospect, there's a property on Old Prospect, it's an agricultural center. He said, we'll just build another high school down there. Well, that's going to add even more traffic of 17 and 18-year-olds on these narrow roads driving on Selmore. And I don't think the taxpayers are going to ask, are we ready to make that kind of commitment? And should we not build the school first and bring the families in, or build it as they're coming in, rather than having our schools become completely overcrowded again, and then saying, let's build a school now? So I really believe what Mr. Harris's concern was about this being an R1A. We always believed that somebody was going to build houses back there. It just makes sense to build houses back there. But to make for such a small house community, just doesn't make sense for the area. I don't think it makes sense according to the comprehensive plan that the taxpayer paid for, I'm assuming. And I think it's important to consider the ramifications of not just this one development, but what we have in the future. And why was planning and zoning led to believe that the property to the west is already a done deal? This is how it's going to happen, because it's not. At least it's not to my knowledge. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Is there anyone else here this evening that would like to speak back to this bill? You would give your name and address to the board.
Sure. Jim Palmer, 24 Melissa.
I'll just ask you to speak up so everybody can hear it, so close to that microphone.
Okay. Jim Palmer, 121 Melissa.
Perfect,
I'm off Elk Valley, but you know, I see everything out there. So I see beautiful sunsets and scenery, and you know, just great colors, great pictures. We love it. You know, this last speaker is running for office. I thought because you know, common sense. And I know there's a bunch of folks here that have a lot of common sense. And I know we want what's best for the city. And that's why I moved here. I moved to the city because there was no problem. As I told the planning and zoning committee, I'm from Michigan. Okay? Not good folks. My brother was murdered there, not long. I was trying to get in line over here. And here I stay. So out there is my place in Solid Creek. Easy going. You guys are certainly in charge. That's not the old government. So I love that point, and I love the big success. I love that, you know, the fact that, okay, every once in a while, I'll close that thing. But as I told the planning and zoning committee, if you approve all these houses in one small area, you're going to get a city like food. Lots of profit. You're going to have, you know, holy cow. There's no jobs when you live around here. Even if you have an itch, I mean, what kind of low paying job you're going to do? And when people are paid enough, guess what they do? Fine. So you're going to put this on the political system, fire department, and everybody else. And I know you guys don't want that for the city. You don't want to see more crime. You don't want to see more stuff happening. But we got right. I gave that speech. I didn't know that. Horrible crime. You know, I don't want to see more of that. We moved away for that reason. I came here because I looked at the statistics and the crime was really about the people here when I came here, just to look for a house. Waiting at you, waiting to get the traffic. No government. Absolutely everywhere. I didn't know what they did. I call this home. I'd like it to remain. My wife and I, we looked at probably 30, 40 houses before we put one on there. We had no idea that there was that's actually developed. I chose beautiful beer. I chose the farm. I don't mind the beer coming in and stealing my apple trees. Calories are not so bad, but you know, it's country, and I enjoy it. And I know you guys, there's no reason why. You know, you love to food, and you want that. So what I'm asking you is to reconsider the actions on. Keep it farm, keep it. If you're going to develop it, you're going to, you know, destroy the beautiful land. It's okay. Who needs an issue, right? You've got your own history of land. Planning and doing history doesn't matter. That's what they said. On the Ozark, history doesn't matter. And that can be restored. But for you guys, you have an opportunity to do something about this. You know, there's still some empty lands out there. There should be some empty factories and industrial in the city. Who keep their places, they're investing. But it seems like you want this to be effective. Sounds really important. I mean, no, that's in the case, but I'm going to get it. So please, I'm ready to do what I like to see. But I do have a question to pose. You don't have the answer. And I've never mentioned Instagram, but I understand that you really care about the history of this town. question because I should have asked planning and zoning. But prior to the vote, I'm good at voting. I wondered if any of those people had any affiliation whatsoever with this development, either personal or business. Just curious. I don't expect anybody here to answer, but at least I asked the question. And it's out there. I'm not really going to ask that question because people are like, how's this going through? You know, today is Juneteenth. Why is City Hall open? Why are you celebrating the freedom and the Emancipation Proclamation? By the way, that history. Abraham Lincoln is one of my favorites. So I celebrate that day. You know, I love history. And I think we all should love history. Look at the backdrop here. So it really shocked me to hear that. I like history. And history doesn't matter. But it does matter. It matters what happened on this land. Civil War. In that way, it matters. But it had no Civil War. Who knows what kind of change this country will be. And Native Americans used to live out that way. Are they going to bury it out there? Because history doesn't matter. But I want to thank you for taking the time to listen. I hope you do the right thing. And we want you all to do that. Thank you, sir.
Meeting. My name is Trina Snyder. I live at 2696 Oak Prospect Road. I have lived in Christian County for 49 years. Never have I seen a body of city government disregard their community so quickly and so arrogantly as planning and zoning did in the last meeting. I can only assume no one on the board has done any kind of research in the county that they make decisions for. The Ozark tribe had most of the forest settlements on this property, along with miners, lead and zinc. So I asked from the board, what guarantee do my neighbors have that their air and their wells will not be contaminated once that land is disturbed and zinc is let and lead is put in the air? What guarantee do the people in the county that live upstream on that creek have a guarantee that that water will not be contaminated when it is relied on from our cattle farm? When that floods, that property, my property, that river runs 120-foot wide. It's a flash creek. It is defined as a disappearing creek, and it is under the jurisdiction of the Army Corps of Engineers. I can prove to you it's Flash Creek. 2015, that is a water rescue in my driveway. A quick search on Google or anybody that's from Christian County that knows my plan would know there is substantial history on that land. So my final question to this board is, are you going to work with your community or are you going to disregard us like planning and zoning? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else here this evening? Thank you for your comment. We'll close the public comment section. Going on Zoom still? I believe there is. All right. Any additional board comments? Hearing none, this will be held open until the next legislative session. Mr. Crowell.
I move to place bill 3373 on its first reading by title and short description.
Motion was made by Alderman Flores, second by Alderman Campbell, for bill number 3373 on its first reading by title and description. All those in favor?
An ordinance amending the zoning code and official map by changing the zoning classification of certain properties bordered by Minnesota Road to the north.
All right, Mr. Smith.
Yes, this request is for rezone of property to R1C. The property is approximately 40 acres.
Property is currently vacant. The R1C zoning will allow for lots of 10,000 square foot or greater. There are no overlay districts that affect this tract of land. There is an identified trail corridor on this parcel as well that will be addressed and included and modified in this property. There are environmental features such as the wetland, riverine, and floodplains that shall be further reviewed and permitted there at the time of planning by the appropriate agency and construction. The existing water and sewer system has capacity and shall be extended to the property to serve this development by the developer. The applicant has been coordinated with the road districts for future improvements of their water road improvements. The comprehensive plan does note this property as a future land use and mixed use. The property is surrounded by single-family residential and agriculture. Single-family residential would be an appropriate use for this area. Based on the staff findings and staff report, staff should recommend approval. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval for the petition.
Members of the board, all, any questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none. Anyone in the audience here speaking in favor of this project, please step forward, give name and address to the clerk.
Yes, Ricky Alderman, 550 St. Louis, Springfield, Missouri. I don't have a lot to add here. This is just a rezoning case, since this is going on the parcel next to it as well. Again, the comprehensive plan is mixed use. And I'll reiterate that Selma Road is the primary arterial. So this Selma Road is intended to carry and grow the city in this direction. Majority of the comprehensive plan, a lot of the properties around it, northwest, south, those directions are all shown as mixed use as well. So comprehensive plan took into account this area have excessive growth. So that's what we're intending to do here with 10,000 square foot lots. That's all I have to add. I can answer any questions.
Mr. Campbell?
You had mentioned on the previous bill that the houses worked out basically 2.5 lots per acre. Is that correct?
Yeah.
What about this part? Can you tell on this part, or is it?
So the project as a whole, yes, this
Okay.
is the same. This whole, you'll see the preliminary plat, the area that the preliminary plat is in, by the number of lots is at 2.5.
Okay.
And that's kind of green space.
That's counting roadways, green space.
Any additional questions?
Thank you.
Is anyone here speaking in opposition? I do request, though, that if you have new evidence,
It'll be short.
not necessarily.
Sorry. I have a tendency to do that with electronics anyway. I heard a click. That was just nice of you, right? I'm just kidding. I just wanted to say one of the, Jesse Serrano, 176 Minnesota Road, once again. I'm curious that no one has asked the representative who's here. I believe, were you the one who said that the way on Wisconsin Road to the east was where all the improvements are going to be done? That's what we're going to discuss. Okay, so once the zoning is changed to R1C, does it matter what happens at the preliminary plat? I mean, isn't that pretty much an admission? This is going to happen with R1C, which just doesn't make sense for this land. So I just wanted to point that out. I would have thought maybe somebody want to know more about his information that he shared. But it is interesting that we can't look at the meeting minutes for that planning and zoning, because I guess the meeting minutes are approved at this meeting or the next meeting. So we can't get the meeting minutes or something. I had to watch the YouTube video and go back to timestamp everything.
The meeting minutes will be adopted at their next regular schedule.
And their meeting, right, okay,
Yes.
so we don't have those to refer to.
But we do,
But-
in open and transparent terms, we have the YouTube video that can be watched.
Right, and that's how I got the 38-minute mark where Jeff Garrison, at the 38-minute mark is where he began to discuss, why are we doing this
R1C when it should be more appropriately done R1A. That's basically a paraphrase. The last thing I'll just say is also, I hadn't heard anybody speak about the power lines that are supplied. Right now, the power lines run down, you get up to where you see Wisconsin Road that goes up to Selmore.
Go down to the road.
Correct. So the power lines run pretty close right against the road on where you see Wisconsin there on the eastern side of the road. Those power lines go back to that grove of trees in the property there in the northwestern corner. There used to be a single resident home. The rest of Wisconsin Road down there is actually a driveway that went to a single resident home, which is now long gone. But those power lines are meant for that single resident's home. They're not there to support an entire neighborhood. And from somebody that knows a lot more than me, when I asked them about that, it said all those power lines not only have to be moved because they're too close to the street to make a 2-lane road with a sidewalk, but they're also not the type of lines that you would need to support that many homes. So that's just a point for me. Thank you very much. Have a nice evening.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else here to speak on this bill? Yeah, I'm gonna speak up again. My name is Jim Palmer. 124 Melissa Avenue. Now, here we have this issue about the volumes. Lead and zinc. Very, very toxic. Right across the street from this development, on the other side of Elk Valley, there are several lines in that area. I don't know if you know, do you guys know that? Anybody know about all the lines in Christian County alone? There's 53. Did you know that? The nursing home here in Ozark is built on it. That was good planning. Should have wanted to see. So when you get things like mercury and lead and everything, the same dust in the air, it affects the lungs. It can cause cancer. And what I wanted, I asked the planning and zoning, I said, who's going to be responsible if people's wells go dry? Who's going to be responsible if people start developing cancer? Are you guys going to take personal responsibility? Can we sue you? Can we sue the city? Should we? I believe that's what's going on in Michigan right now with the Flint water. Big money in the city of Flint. Might be years down the road. You have insurance? I mean, I'm just asking these, I'm throwing this out. Because I understood that you guys all wanted what's best for the city. The rest of you, I mean, really, what's going to happen? Has any studies been done on this property for lead and iron before they start bulldozing, pushing that dust in the air? Because you've got a lot of families out there, and we don't want to get sick. Now, by your last vote, I already showed that you don't care about the history. You don't care about the nature that's out there. You don't care about the, the beautiful. Have you seen the waterfall and stuff that's out there? Now, it's not this particular parcel, but it's out there. And once you start putting people in there, it'll be hard to protect it. You're talking about hundreds and hundreds of homes after the full development. Because I know you guys have insight, you work into the future, part of the planning portion of this, planning and zoning, and then approving of their plans. So I'm sure you look at their plans as well, because you guys all have good common sense. And you wouldn't purposely destroy Elk Valley, which have no one help, to put in a few houses to satisfy one real estate developer. I understand he's a good businessman. He likes to make money. But we're folks who work hard, take care of our property, are proud of where we live, and we like to repeat it. But putting that many houses in this area is going to do nothing but cause harm to the city. It's not going to bring more business to your shops because it's not going to attract the right people who are going to come to those businesses. Thank you, sir.
Trina Snyder, 2696 Old Prospect Road.
Thank you.
In 2018, I had a conversation with Sheriff Cole about the lack of man hours and manpower to patrol in the county. And I understand that this is city. However, will the city work with the county to allot a budget for more police protection? Because the traffic is horrible as it is out there. It will get worse if you're gonna cram all these houses out there and there's hidden driveways all through. There's 3 on Old Prospect, mine's one of them. So are you gonna work with the police department so we have better patrol to take care of the issues out there when more people come? And is anybody willing to work with Missouri Conservation for the endangered species? The bald eagles that use the land, the alligator snapping turtles that use the land. There's red hot, there's all kinds of wildlife. We're having a horrible problem right now with coyotes. I have picked up 3 dead cats and right now I gotta go home after this and drag a deer out of the creek. Because the coyotes will literally come up on the porch. They're not scared of us. So is Missouri Conservation gonna come out and help? And is anyone willing to protect the wildlife? Because we do hunt, we shoot guns. Is that gonna get taken away from us because now the city limits by us? Is the cattle farmers gonna have to restrict what they have because the city limits are by us? I beg you to really look at this and see how many people are gonna be affected, not only just the people on Silvermore. They're gonna have a horrible time. But the people on a Prospect and Red Cedar and Devon, that creek was clear back. It's part of Bull Creek. It's an off-branch of Bull Creek. I beg you to help protect it. Give us our peace and let us keep the land. For once, give us the land. Just ask her.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here this evening to speak on this topic? Any other additional comments from the board? All right, this bill will be held over till the next legislative session. Like a book up here, yes. So,
I move that we place bill 3374 on its first reading by title and short description.
motion was made by Alderman Flores, second by Alderman Campbell, to place bill number 3374 on its first reading by title and description only. All those in favor? That is unanimous.
An ordinance approving the preliminary plat for Natural Bridge subdivision and authorizing the Director of Planning and Development to accept the dedication of the public streets and easements to the city as shown on the preliminary plat upon the applicant filing and recording a final plat that substantially conforms to the preliminary plat, and authorizing the city clerk to sign the final plat upon compliance with the terms of this ordinance.
Mr. Smith?
Yes, the application is for the preliminary plat of phase 1 of Natural Bridge Estates. The preliminary plat that they have proposed does conform to the requested R1C zoning. The preliminary plat does identify the public trail easement definition previously. Once the water and sewer plans are complete, the design staff will further evaluate those with our third-party engineers. We'll also review for compliance with the Department of Natural Resources. Staff and our third-party engineers have reviewed they approved the stormwater plan that has been submitted with this application. In addition, the staff and our third-party engineers have evaluated the transportation and traffic report study to further make sure we are in compliance with that as well. The applicant is working with the city, Ozark Special Road District, and the Silmore Road District to address the improvements that will be required with the development of this project. Based on the staff's report, staff's finding, staff is recommending approval. In addition, the applicant will be obligated to further evaluate the existing site features such as the environmental features of the wildlife and any habitat for the land disturbance permit application and coordinate that with the Department of Natural Resources. The Planning and Zoning Commission did recommend approval.
The members of the Board of Alderman have any questions for Mr. Smith? Mr. Garza.
Well, I'm not sure if this is just to you, pardon me, to you, Cameron, or if it's to a Mr. Summers with a special roof. Pardon me, this is contagious tonight. Or if it's would go to Mr. Summers, but I have no problem with the zoning. The coyotes will take care of themselves. It's going to be on city water. The annexation and the zoning, I don't see the issue with. But I am curious with the comments that have been made. I would just like some clarification because I know that the code requires 2 access points into the property. One of them is off Selmore Road, and it's a double lane. It's going to be a real nice looking entrance. The other is at the intersection of apparently of Minnesota and Wisconsin. And I'm not sure, and I need for one or both of you all to tell me if we're approving the preliminary plat, are we saying that we are assured that the necessary road improvements that they will be stipulated in the improvement or the approval of the plat? And there were comments made about landowners that would be affected and not contacted. And I don't, this may be a question to you gentlemen. I just don't know, but I know what the rules are. You have to have ingress and egress at 2 points. And in it, I'm not sure that I've heard enough to let me know that that Wisconsin and Minnesota can be taken care of properly. So I just want to know, and it, so from you two and probably from the developer, because like I said, the rest of it I have no problem with.
I'll address some of that you are correct. Due to the International Fire Code, any residence over 30 lots or any subdivision over 30 lots has to have a secondary.
Public right of way. That connection they're proposing for Wisconsin is public right of way. Yes, the proposed preliminary plat is stating that they will bring those off-site improvements up to compliance to their regulations. And I'll let Mr. Summers address this, but he did identify that in here that their purpose contingent on improving those off-site.
Okay, so it's kind of a follow-up question. I think I know the answer, but I don't know. If I'm right, I want you to let everybody else know. We can improve the plat, but those improvements have to be made for lots to be stored.
Yes, the process is, if the preliminary plat is approved, then the developer would proceed on with construction drawing improvements to submit approval. Once all those public improvements are completed, such as the stormwater, the roads, the water, sewer, all those improvements are completed, then they can make application for final plat that can be recorded at that time, so they can simplify.
Yeah, so it's administrative approval at that point, but they haven't satisfied staff that all the road improvements that have been required by the special road district in the city have been completed. So all we're doing tonight, if we're not approving it tonight, is having the first reading. But if it is approved at the next reading in July, we're just saying that it's approved if you make the road improvements that we're requiring, and if not, you can't sell lots.
That's correct.
Oh,
We got Mr. Smith live.
He's live too. Yes, that is correct. Approving the preliminary plat, this is making the next step to allow the
Proceed with those public improvements that have to be, that basically have to comply to the preliminary plat and the construction drawings that was approved by staff and the third-party engineers before they can final plat that.
And but the preliminary plat is only for the property that's been annexed and zoned. Do the construction drawings show the required road improvements that are off-site?
Yes, I'll clarify a little bit that in addition to your question, there's more property that's been annexed, but they're only plotting all of the 71 acre first application and a portion of the 40 acre. So the phase 1 is just a portion of that second application. But yes, in addition to the preliminary plat, there will be offsite improvements that would show up on a set of plans for the offsite road improvements, the water extension that had to be brought down from the north to serve this property. Those will also be included as offsite improvements.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Summers, and I'm going to bring Mr. Smith
Just one
back
thing,
up.
we pretty much we were same information that you're requesting, Mr. Smith. Also, what we had asked was is that when this is like completely developed, OSRD's question was is that do you have another exit? And they had talked about, was it 14th Avenue, that most western street? Or was it 6? Yeah, 6 goes from 14 and it travels all the way to the south. Yeah, so we had actually spoke to the developer about that. Well, you know, because it's a lot of homes, not a lot of streets to, you know, get in and out of. So were you going to be proposing another one? And they had actually talked about that. I guess there used to be an old, my understanding, old trailer park down in the southeastern part of this development. That's what we had discussed. But yes, the improvements have to be made, obviously, way before the development, you know, really gets going. That's what we want to see, definitely. Yes, absolutely. Yes, it is. Yes, sir.
Mr. Smith, if you wouldn't mind, I have a couple of questions. Maybe you might be able to help me out with. To maybe then now go back and answer a couple of the questions that were brought forward earlier. Water quality was one of those. These will all be on the city's water system, so we will not be puncturing any earth out there to put. If you guys don't mind, I'm sorry. That's okay. There will be no individual wells in the area, so there shouldn't be any contamination of wells due to any existing wells due to multiple wells being put in the ground in that area, correct?
That is correct, and this may be a next question, but I want to clarify, in addition, there's no septic tanks allowed, so it'll all be piped into our existing sanitary.
Everything will be going into the Elk Valley
treatment plant. And the trunk main is already through this property.
That was established in 2008, 9, somewhere in that range, because the planning at that point in time was that the south side of Ozark would grow, so they put in that system and that Elk Valley line to accommodate the growth that was being projected.
That's an entirely different drainage plane, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, knowing that the south side of Ozark was going to grow someday, we went as far south as we could with a 24-inch gravity trunk main, and that was the trunk main to collect that entire drainage basin and go down to the newest plant, the Elk Valley plant.
Okay.
So yeah, that was put in again back in 2008, maybe 8, 9. I can't really remember. I'm sorry.
I remember it from my first term in office, but I can't pinpoint the date. So I just want to go through some of the questions that were asked. I may have to call on the city attorney or yourself, but I just want to be able to touch on some of those because I don't necessarily know the answer. So lead mine dust in the air. Is there anything that air quality that is done, monitored by DNR or anything along those lines?
I will turn over to the applicant's representative to address that, but yes.
Okay, well, then maybe that's the person I should ask these questions to then, if you wouldn't mind, if you'd entertain this, please. I think that the people in the audience had asked a couple of questions. I just would like to get the answers for myself.
Absolutely.
Can you explain maybe air disturbance through this process? If something is triggered, what is the normal protocol?
Yeah, so when we go through the final design on this, we go through what's called a stormwater pollution prevention plan, and we look at every environmental factor. We coordinate with the DNR and multiple other government agencies, EPA, those types of agencies.
Okay.
And they'll tell us if there's any of those types of concerns in the area. And then from there, it's on the contractor at that point to monitor those types of things. If they're excavating and see something out of the ordinary, or there's dust, they have a requirement to keep the dust down. They're using water trucks out there, those sorts of things to monitor that situation.
Okay. So there are protocols in place to help limit exposures.
Correct.
Pardon me. The question was talked about Indians and the potential burial ground for Native Americans.
That's all handled.
That's also,
We coordinate with historical societies during our SWIP, and they'll let us know if there's been anything identified in the area, if there's any reason for us to have any concern. And then again, they'll let us know if there is. If there isn't, then again, the contractor, if they excavate something, then at that point they notify us and we go through a process there as well. And that's all outlined in their construction requirements.
okay, perfect. So if you do find something, then there will be.
Yes, everything gets shut down.
Everything gets shut down until
Yeah,
they have.
there's a process in place for that.
Okay, perfect. There was a question about gun usage. You're inside the county. You can fire guns.
There shouldn't be any bullets flying onto the developer's property.
We hope not.
Leave it at that.
There was a question that was asked about police and sheriff cooperation. The city of Ozark and the sheriff's department do have a cooperative agreement in place, multi-jurisdictional. They help each other. So I just want to put that mind at ease. Our chief of police and our sheriff do work together, and when needed, they will work inside each other's jurisdiction. Traffic issues. You guys have completed a traffic study.
Correct.
Of the area.
Correct.
And you're going to bring everything up to code as
Yes.
to what you found through that traffic study?
Yeah, so with that traffic study, again, we only looked at phase one. If any expansion ever happens to the east, we are starting this process entirely new from the whole beginning, new traffic study, everything. So keeping that in mind, we have the main connection. Obviously, the largest majority of traffic is going directly to Selmore Road, the connection that we're tying in there. We've looked at the site distance there. We understand that the speed limit's 45. We understand that people probably drive at, well over that speed limit on that road. We took that into account with our site distances, moved the drive down the hill. So we have no concerns with that, how that drive entrance is going to function there. As far as the Minnesota and Wisconsin road, that area, at the planning and zoning meeting, I was simply communicating what Ozark Special Road District had communicated to me in those meetings. I was not aware that they were changing their plans as far as what they were doing with Minnesota Road. So it sounds like they're going to keep that connection in place. That's the latest that I know of that. And then Wisconsin, making that connection up to Selmore Road, it'll be our responsibility to acquire additional right-of-way as needed to widen that road, and then make that connection into Selmore Road again with Wisconsin. And it needs to satisfy the Ozark Special Road District. So all that coordination, that layout, that right-of-way acquisition, all that is our responsibility. After, if we wind up with approval, it's our responsibility to make that happen. And if we don't, as you were getting at, we can't sell lots and we can't build it. So we want to make that we have to make that happen, and it's on us to do that.
Okay, the only other, and I was trying to make notes as everybody was talking, so I hope you don't think I was ignoring you. I was trying to write down your concerns on paper, so I'll even be following up after the fact. But stormwater.
Yes. So what we do up from an engineering standpoint is we look at the way the site is functioning now as a pasture field, hay field. And we look at the stormwater, how it's running off now and what it'll run off with, or how it'll run off after we develop this. Those two scenarios, the amount of water that's released now will be the same when it's developed. The way we do that is by building ponds. The water flows in and slowly releases at the same rate it releases now. There's been a lot of talk about the Corps of Engineers stream and floodplain that passes along the south. None of our project gets into that. We're outside of the floodplain. You can't build homes in floodplains, so we won't be touching that. We are providing the city with a 30-foot trail easement for the city to have to build their trail connection as identified in the comprehensive plan through that floodplain. And so with that, with the stormwater, like I said, we won't be releasing it any more than it is now. And we have multiple ponds situated outside of the floodway on the property to handle that additional stormwater.
Perfect. And that, just out of curiosity, that stormwater is Is that going back to the east? Is it going south?
It's going south, right to the floodplain.
Okay.
So along that south end, you'll have the big sewer or 24-inch line that goes through there, and you'd have a trail, and then you'd have your ponds on either side that discharge to that floodplain.
Perfect. All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Unless you have anything additional.
The only thing I would say is just making sure, talking about utilities, we do have an off-site water main extension that we bring to the site. That was also our responsibility to make the project happen. And then, yep, I think that was all I had on my list. So happy to answer any other questions you guys have.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Snyder, go right ahead.
Is there any potential for contamination of a well with this entire project?
No, we're not putting in any wells with this, and we're bringing a water main to the
What I'm saying with the construction as a whole, is there any chance of contamination of any existing well or the collapse of any existing well?
So when we design this, it is our responsibility from a design standpoint to make sure that the way the design works, that does not happen.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional comments before I close the public hearing? Yes, sir.
I just guaranteeing that there's not going to be any problem to the well. I have a well system and I love the well water. I have it tested regularly for lead. I would hate to see that get contaminated because I don't want to pay for city water. And I'm sorry, Jim Palmer again. 24 Ballista.
Yes, sir.
So, you know, I'm looking at or listening to the stories being told here, and they all sound good. They sound plausible. They sound logical, but I don't believe it. And, you know, until I see anything to the contrary, I'm never going to believe it. And how you guys can believe it is beyond me. You know, there's a lot of missing data that we don't have. And, you know, maybe that would be a little bit more beneficial to us and there wouldn't be so much opposition. But as a matter of fact, if you guys are so stuck on getting this, why don't you allow the people of Ozark to vote on it? Whether this should be done this way.
That is not the way the law is written, sir.
Because in Springfield, the judge just ruled that they have to. Look it up. Yeah.
Ms. Calloway.
Look it up, Galloway.
It's based on their charter provision, which we don't have a charter.
Yes.
But how about we get a petition going here to oppose it? I mean, online right now, on change.org, there's 4,200 signatures to stop this annexation, to stop this project. 4,200. I don't know how many people are registered here in Ozark, but I guarantee you, everybody I've spoken to in this city, complete strangers, I showed them a picture of the springs and stuff out there, and they're like, this needs to be preserved. I don't think you guys know the people here and what they really want, what they really care about. You have a lot of demographic changes here. You understand that. You've got people moving from here from all around the country. I've met them. We care about the environment. Even as conservatives, it says it in the name, doesn't it? Conserve, preserve, protect. You know, you've given this land to be caretakers of it, and we should be good caretakers of it. You know, the potential of poisoning our wells, making it force us to go on city water. Like I said, I don't want city water. Nobody else out there wants it either. And, you know, that trailer park that he talks about, that contaminated one, that needs to be cleaned up, that's been there, I think Stanger City owns that property for the past 20 years or more. It's been contaminated for quite some time. Why isn't it cleaned up? If it's such a good concern. And that's going to be, you know, an area that's just a stone's throw from my house. And I don't like that. I don't think Ozark needs it. I don't understand why you guys can't see the big picture. you understand that there's a food shortage coming and you want to tear up the very little farmland that's left around here, food, area that could sustain us? Or you guys all have little gardens at home that'll take care of your families? I don't know. I speak to the people at the Commerce Department, US government. Somebody with a PhD told me, we don't know what to do about these supply chain shortages. Like, really, you guys can't figure that out? It's something for you guys to think about. Protect the community, Mr. Mayor. Plan for it appropriately. Having all these houses is not appropriate.
Thank you, sir. All right, anyone else here to speak on this topic this evening? Yes, sir.
My name is Stu Stinger, 5051 South National, and I'm the developer of the proposed property. A couple of things I wanted to address that I've heard tonight. We have owned this property for over 20 years. It's probably the most beautiful piece of property that we've run into in a long time. And from our perspective, we want to share it with people that want to move to Ozark. There, time and time again in our business, we get a lot of requests of, do you have a development in Ozark? No, well, we own land, we don't have a development yet. There are people that want to move here, the supply is low. But what we wanted, and the reason why it's taken 20 years for us to get this going, is that there are so many unique features to that property, and we want to showcase them in our development. We want people to go out there in the community and be able to go see the natural bridge, which will feature it, to go see the falls, to go see the pond, the 50 acres of floodplain that will be green space. I mean, these are all features that you don't have to ruin. You can showcase them and make it and build them into the community around it. So those are the things that we want to do with the land. And I would be happy to answer any questions that you have tonight.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Stinger?
Thank you.
All right.
Jesse Serrano, 176 Minnesota Road. Congratulations on getting the microphones fixed.
Thank you, sir. You've already spoke on this bill, and I went ahead and let him speak on it for a second term. But technically that violates the way we conduct business here.
Okay.
Isn't this the plating part? And isn't this a different plating than it was?
I'm sorry, I thought you spoke on this plating.
No, I did not speak on plating.
Okay, I'm sorry, I apologize. Go right ahead.
I know, I'm easy to confuse with other people.
Well, it's not that, we just had several bills, so.
We had several segments.
I don't want to take away your opportunity, I apologize.
No, I love everything that Mr. Stenger said about the area. I agree about it being a beautiful area and ready to preserve. And I do not believe that it should be completely, that just those of us who live in the borders of the property should be the only ones to see it. So once again, we always expected when this was county property that it would be developed with 3 to 5 acre lots, which is the law in the county, or what do you call it, restrictions? Sorry, there's probably a better term for that. But once again, the only thing I'm asking is, why does this have to be R1C? The question was asked of the representative of Natural Bridge earlier at the Planning and Zoning meeting. And specifically, they said, what would happen if we were to zone this as R1A? And he said they would, I believe his terms were something like, we'll just abandon the project. We're not going to build there. I'm sure maybe that's the truth. Somehow I think that it would be worth it to build on 20,000 square foot lots, better than nothing. I think there'd be plenty of people that would be able to enjoy it, and I think it would be more manageable for Ozark's growth. There's nothing wrong with that. But to say that they just abandon it, well, then the property's still there. Maybe they could sell it to somebody who will do an R1A development because it seems to be more appropriate for the land. Right now, if you were to go to, I wish I knew the name of the street, but it runs by Yen Ching's up there.
22nd?
Yes, 22nd Street. If you were to head north on 22nd in the morning during traffic times, you'd see that it is
a very difficult proposition to take a right turn there because the road does not handle that traffic. The corner is just not made for that traffic. And the people that live there that have bought in that new subdivision that was just built out there, I complain a lot about being able to get out of there. The business owner there at the Conoco station has mentioned to me what a nightmare it is. So we have to plan ahead for these traffic concerns, which might help in the future. The other thing was when he said that they had to acquire additional right of way. Does that just mean that Mary Noon's land is just going to be taken? What does that mean, acquire the additional right of way? I know that the people on the east or west side of the road, rather, have all been approached about buying their properties. And I'm sure probably a couple of them were, but the people on the corner said, no, we're not going to sell. We don't want to leave. We just got our house redone. So I just think that the R1A is a better proposition. And just as previously mentioned, I do have a septic system and I do have a well right on that corner lot that we've been talking about, where the corner of Minnesota and Wisconsin, that entire corner is our property. And I'm not questioning they're not going to be drilling wells for all those homes, which is going to contaminate the water table. But if you know anything about heavy construction equipment driving up and down a road, Selmore Road, or not Selmore, Wisconsin Road is a driveway. And all of that construction equipment, all of that tearing up that road to build a wider road with a sidewalk to go into that community is going to have an effect on our wells. Because my well is probably, I'd say, within 100 feet, maybe 90 feet of where that road is. So being the legal representative here, if my well becomes contaminated from all of the digging on the other side of Wisconsin Road, what recourse do I have, or any of my neighbors? We all have wells along that road. Do we have any recourse? Okay, well, thank you very much. I just wanted to know, I didn't know if there was some way that we could answer that question, because I think it is important. The other thing is when they said that we didn't have the required amount of signatures for the opposition petition that we talked about earlier. Well, almost, I know of every resident outside of Mary Noon on that road, Minnesota, and everybody on Covered Bridge Road turned in signatures with that petition. It said that anybody within 180 feet of the project, that 30% of those people living within 180 feet of that project would voice their opposition. But when we brought those, and I think Cameron said something like, the reason ours didn't account for 30%, even though we had 99 or 98% of the signatures, was because the natural bridge, their property bordering that, gave them more votes than the rest of us. They didn't fill out a petition to oppose their own land. And that's why our 100% or 98%, whatever it was, didn't account for enough opposition signatures. Does that make sense to anybody? That the people who own all the open land of the project where there are no homes whatsoever can actually have a voice, as every single one of those homes was as if it was a single residency, like all of us were. So I just ask once again that you consider making it R1A rather than R1C. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, one last time, anyone that hasn't spoke that would like to speak on this bill? Hearing none, this bill will be held over till the next legislative session. Mr. Flores.
Place Bill 3375 on its first reading by title and description only.
Motion was made by Alderman Flores, second by Alderman Campbell, to place bill number 3375 on its first reading by title and description only. All those in favor?
An ordinance amending the corporate boundaries of the city of Ozark, Missouri by annexing certain real property generally known as 3 parcels, approximately 4.75, 10, and 10.25 acres, which are bordered on the north by Longview Road.
All right, Mr. Smith.
Yes, the application is for 3 parcels of land totaling approximately 25 acres located along the southern side of Longview Road near the intersection of 21st Street. All these parcels are located within the Tier 1 urban service area. The properties are compactiguous with the city limits. They are surrounded by city limits on all 4 sides. The city does have adequate utility services and capacities to serve future development. Sewer and water services is at or near the project boundaries. Based on the staff's finding and the report, the staff's recommendation was for approval. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval 4-2.
All right. Any comments from the Board of Aldermen regarding this bill? Is there anyone here in the audience to speak on behalf of this project in favor? If you would give your name and address to the clerk.
Yes, sir. Evening, Chris Kennard, Diversity Commercial Investments, 2107 East Rockhurst. So yeah, we have a preliminary concept to develop 25 acres spoken of there on Longview Road. We're excited for the prospect for that being annexed into the city and to be able to use the infrastructure put in place by the city for development such as this. Happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Anybody have any questions for the applicant? Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Is there anyone in the audience here to speak against this bill? Hearing none. If there's no additional comments by the Board of Aldermen, this bill will be held over to the next legislative session. Mr. Flores.
Move that we place bill 3376 on its first reading by title and description only.
Motion was made by Alderman Flores, second by Alderman Campbell, place bill number 3376 on its first reading by title and description only. All those in favor?
An ordinance amending the zoning code and official map by changing the zoning classification of certain property 10 acres in size bordered by Longview Road.
Mr. Smith?
Yes, you'll see 3 applications, this including 2 following. In regards to the applications, there are 3 tracts on the agenda, all requesting the zoning of R3. Just to clarify, this is the westernmost tract, as you can see on the screen. The following 2 applications will be the second parcel, which is the middle, and the third is to the easternmost. The request is to rezone this property to R3, medium density multifamily residential. The property is approximately 10 acres in size. The property is currently vacant. The R3 zoning does accommodate buildings up to 8 units per building or 2 family dwellings. There are no overlay districts that affect this property. There is an identified trail corridor through this property and an easement shall be provided with the development of this property. There are environmental features identified on this property and shall be further reviewed and permitted by the appropriate authority. The comprehensive plan does note this future land use as parks and open space. The surrounding land uses that are in the city are single family, commercial, single family to the west and south, commercial to the east, R4 high density to the north, industrial to the north, and mobile home district to the north. The proposed R3 zoning would make an appropriate zoning transitional use between the 2 uses, such as single family and those more intense uses. Based on the staff's report, staff's findings, staff did recommend approval. The planning zoning recommendation was a denial of 4-1. Happy to answer any questions.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Smith? Mr. Gardner.
I'm not sure if this question should go to you or to the applicant, but last week, as maybe not everybody knows, but there was a meeting between the staff and the applicant and Mr. Flores and myself being the alderman for that ward. And there was a discussion of putting a height restriction on the westernmost.
We'll turn that to the applicant and Alderman Flores.
Okay, that's good.
All right. Any other questions for Mr. Smith? Hearing none. Is there anyone in here that would like to speak on behalf of this bill in favor? Pardon me. Nothing. In favor? Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
So yes,
if you would, just for the record, go ahead and.
Chris Kennard, Diversity Commercial Investments, 2107 East Rockhurst.
Thank you, sir.
So yes, in the planning and zoning meeting, we of course heard the public comment and took that to heart. I mean, we want to provide a good quality development, and in researching that and talking with staff and whatnot, we realized that there's a conditional overlay district that could be applied with the city conditional overlay district, which is part of city code section 405.460. With that being in place, we would like to request additional overlay district that would disallow any structure over 1 story within 250 feet of our west boundary line. That's the boundary line against Ozark Heights subdivision. So anything within 250 feet of that west line, we would limit to 1 story. I have an exhibit that delineates, that shows that. If you guys are interested, I can hand those to you.
If you wouldn't mind giving it to the city attorney, please. Thank you, sir.
So there's a faint hashed line, dotted line along the west side that shows 250 feet. Of course, that is a very preliminary drawing, but it is within our intentions.
Okay.
Is there any questions about that? Be happy to answer them.
Pardon me. Does anybody have any questions with regards to this map that was just presented? Hearing none. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see it.
I was just going to say, as a sponsor of this bill, I was going to make an amendment to it after public comment.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anyone in opposition to this bill would like to come forward and speak? If you would, give your name and address to the clerk.
Chris Goodfellow, 2306 Lakeside Court. I'm here representing the Ozark Heights Homeowners Association, which our address is 2603 North Skyview Lane. So as you heard, the recommendation was to not approve this rezoning to R3 because we were in opposition of that R3 zoning at the zoning commission here. We are not fighting progress. We're not saying we don't want anything over there. What we're saying is we want residential neighborhood next to our residential neighborhood. If you look on the map, you'll see that Ozark Heights is R1A and B. And there's a dash of C, I think, over there too. We want something that's complementary to that. R3 does not fit that. If you look around Ozark at the different areas, you'll see that R3 zoning is almost never, actually, I don't think it is actually ever next to an R1A. It's not next to an R1B, but it does back up against an R1C. So R3 seems very far out there as far as the zoning for right next to Ozark Heights. In addition to that, the gentleman had previously at the zoning hearing said that his plans were something similar to Deerbrook, which is a really nice gated community. It's a 55+ gated community, but it's zoned R1. It's not zoned R3. And it has R1 styled homes. If you take a look at Longview Road there, I'm sure many of you have, there's a lot of construction up at Longview going on just north of 21st Street, whole new Eastbrook or something like that, estates. And then you get up to CC and that intersection, if you're trying to get in and out at any time of the day, the heavy traffic times, you're going to be sitting there a long, long time. The same is for the south of it. If you try to wrap around Longview and go down 20th and exit down south, you're going to have the same problem. We've got way too much traffic already in the area. So putting in R3, we got multi-unit housing in there. We're not going to be able to actually support that on the roadways. We can barely get in and out now. And then you get into
the community area that's downstream, literally. So you can see in the middle plat there where that line of trees kind of flows down into Ozark Heights, and you'll see that Ozark Heights has no homes in that southeast corner or southwest corner of that property. That's because we have a pond there. That area, every time it rains, turns into a little miniature river, and it flows all the way through Ozark Heights. The pond that sits in that corner, you see there's the two cul-de-sacs there off 24th, that's where I live. The pond that sits just northwest, yeah, right there. That's stocked with fish, has turtles, the geese come and visit us as well. It's, they cross back and forth on the road, but that's our greenway. So if you zone R3 up there, all of that stuff is going to flow downhill into our greenway, into our pond, into our fish, into our turtles, into our little nice area. The previous bills that we heard, they were fighting just residential because they didn't want to change the way everything looked. Ozark Heights was built around it, and it looks beautiful. That's why I live there. And that's what we're asking is continue with residential where it makes sense, which is here. Go with an R1 zoning. Please don't stick an R3 out there. We don't want it. And it doesn't align. Well, while there is stuff that's R3 elsewhere, it's separated. There's an R1C, there's an R1P or a D, and a lot of times it's the other side of a road, so there can be that break apart. We like our nice, quiet community. We're not opposed to continuing to expand Ozark. Everybody moves here because they like Ozark. We just don't want multi-domain. That's it.
All right, thank you, sir. Is there anyone else here this evening that would like to speak?
My name is Charlie Williams. I live at 2812 North 24th Street in Ozark Heights. We've been there since 2003, and we have a great neighborhood there. I am very much opposed to the rezoning. However, I am very much in favor of multifamily dwellings. Several years ago, we built some duplexes out here on Indian Highway, just this side of the water tower. After that, we built some duplexes in Rogersville. And we built some in West Springfield. And then we built some in Republic. We probably had about 24 rental units at one time. All of those properties had one thing in common. They were a separate entity. There were no residential buildings close by. They were for that specific purpose. And I'd like for you to take one little tour of the area. I did driving around a little bit. The apartments right across the street from this property is supposed to be rezoned, which I oppose. There's a Hilltop mobile home park right there. You go down 22nd Street, you have the old plantation apartments. A little bit further, you have the Fremont Townhouse Complex. If you go on across 22nd Street to past CC, you got that Ozark Trails, all that development back there. Look over behind Big Whiskies, all that big development back there. Look on 20th and Bingham, those apartment buildings, and you go beyond west there, there's more apartment buildings. Look behind Price Cutter. You got the James River Retirement Center. Also back there, you've got the Embassy Apartments. Over on Farmers Branch Road, there's another complex, the Villages. And what do they have in common? They're all separate. There are no family individual homes nearby. So keep it that way. Our property backs up to this property. And even beyond that, we are very, very pleased with our subdivision. It's a very family oriented. We have a great playground for our kids. You got a zero entrance pool for the little toddlers. We take great pride in keeping things clean. Here's a couple of pictures of the common maintenance area. I think we have between 7 and 8 acres of landscaping to take care of.
Here's another picture of one of the common areas. And it's mowed weekly. One other picture. And this one is near and dear to my heart. This is looking at Longview Road, right down the property line where they join each other. I have mowed that section for many years. When I first started mowing that, going from Longview down 5, 6 lots, probably longer than a football field, with a self-propelled Toro push mower, self-propelled mower. And when I got a riding mower in 2010, I thought I'd died and gone to heaven. And so we have maintained that, and we will continue to do that. We have snakes, rats, mice, possums, raccoons, armadillos, and we'll take care of that to take care of our property. So I would ask you, help us take care of our property. And one thing we don't want, this is a recent picture, have some people fishing in our pond. See the little bridge nearby? There's a sign that says no swimming, no fishing, stay off the ice. I know from experience, some of the people who are tenants are great people. Some are not. Someone like this has a loaded van and truck coming by to fish in our pond, which has a plastic liner pool, they can ruin it. We don't want that. We want to take care of our properties. So I urge you to do not rezone that property. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
Philip Webb, 2808 North 24th Street. Sorry it took me so long to get up here, but I'm using my pajamas sitting in my recliner waiting to go to bed at this time. I live in Ozark Heights. I love it. It's a beautiful place to live. If you haven't driven through there, you should. I think it's probably the premier addition in Ozark, the city. Now, I've lived in the Ozark since 1987. And I just love it here in Ozark. The people here, the greatest asset is the people. They're kind, they're considerate, they're polite. And the next thing is the natural beauty of this place. I admire all these Springfield people who used to live in a place like Ozark that are coming out here to try to build in Ozark. I don't blame them. I think that progress is good. I think that making money is wonderful, but I resent somebody coming in and making money at my expense. My wife and I have been married 57 years, and we spent our whole life. I couldn't afford an apartment. I couldn't afford a car when we got married. So I'm not anti-apartment, and I don't dislike those people there because I was one of them. We couldn't afford an apartment for the first 2 years of our marriage. My wife stayed with her folks, and I went to Vietnam 3 times. And so when we came back, we could afford a little small apartment. And we enjoyed it there, but it was just apartments. There was no homes next to us. The last lot that sold in Ozark Heights before the pandemic brought $40,000. 3 homes in my area were never listed with a real estate agent. They sold without that. The last one that did sell in Ozark Heights was around the corner from me, but it brought $550,000. They listed it Friday at 6 o'clock, and Sunday afternoon at 2, it was sold. There's money to be made in houses in Ozark. There really is, especially all brick homes like we have in Ozark Heights. But we know that not everybody's going to want to build a home like we have in Ozark Heights. I mean, my wife and I walked out of our old house and into the new house in Ozark Heights. We had $4,200 left. That's everything we have. I don't own any property anyplace else. My whole life is invested in my property. And I love it there. I got great neighbors. Gosh, it's just beautiful there. And I'm not opposed to somebody making the money. I'm not. But please, if I could do for you, every one of you, what you can do for me, I would do it and I wouldn't even hesitate. I will protect my property from property line to property line, and I would give my life for it. I already have once in buying this home. I'm just asking you to do what I can't do beyond my property line, which is make sure that it doesn't cost me and my wife and my family, because I'm going to live here at Ozark the rest of my life, whatever that is. I keep telling my wife I'm going to the nursing home, the funeral home from right here. I mean, it's that nice there. And I have great neighbors. I love the city. I like it. I wouldn't have your job at my age for nothing, I'm promising you. But I appreciate you doing it. Appreciate you being here. Do the right thing. And I was on the board at Ozark Heights for a couple of years, and I was president of a homeowner association for 15 years prior to coming to Ozark. And it's a hard job and it's a difficult job. But the most problems that I dealt with as a vice president of Ozark Heights involved the apartments on Longview. And there's only 60 of them there, but that was where we had our biggest problems. And whatever you approved behind me, I'm going to live with the rest of my life. And I'd appreciate a little help if you could give it to me. I'm standing here with my hat in my hand, and this is all up to you. Thank you very much for your time, and I appreciate you hearing me out. And I wish you all the very best. You have a wonderful city, and I love it here, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else here this evening to speak?
Dwight Lindsay, 2308 Lakeside Court. I just want to re-emphasize some of the things that have been brought up here so far tonight. Things that I look at, and I have concerns. One, this is really a poor fit to jam an R3 in next to R1A and B, and then some property south of this piece of property. My understanding is R3. R1, or RA3, well, I don't know, you know what I'm talking about. But anyway, it's zoned for housing development homes, but it's just a poor fit to jam this in amongst residential homes. The second thing is water. As we have discussed earlier, this land, there's a tremendous amount of water runs through there into our property, our community, and it goes all the way through our community. If you put apartments with roofs, asphalt parking lots, you're going to add to this problem that we have. It's just going to create more water, and it is an issue already. The third thing is traffic on 20th and 22nd Street. You just need to drive that in the morning early or in the evening, try to get through there. It takes several times to get onto CC off of 22nd. It's just impossible sometimes. But look at this and think about what is being proposed and what that will do to the area. Noise will be another concern. It's going to have more traffic when you have this number of apartments. You figure 1 to 2 cars per apartment. That's more traffic, more noise. It's going to be a problem. So think about this. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Anyone else? Any additional comments from the board? Hearing none. Oh, you got something? I'm sorry. I keep not picking up your red light there.
I'm going to make a motion to amend this bill to add a conditional overlay district pursuant to the city code section 405.460 to reduce the height of all dwelling units to 1 story within 250 foot of the western property line of this parcel.
Give me just a second to catch up to you. All right, there's a motion on the floor by Alderman Flores, second by Alderman Campbell. The amendment to put the conditional overlay on the property. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstain? Stay again. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see Mr. Snyder vote. You were in favor? Okay, all right, perfect. All right, I didn't see you, I'm sorry. All right. That amendment passes. This bill will be coming back to the Board of Aldermen at the next legislative session in its first reading. So you will have additional opportunities to speak. All right, Mr. Flores.
Move that we place Bill 3377 on its first reading by title and description only.
Motion was made by Alderman Flores, second by Alderman Campbell to place bill number 3377 on its first reading by title and description only. All those in favor?
An ordinance amending the zoning code and official map by changing the zoning classification of certain property 10.25 acres in size bordered by Longview Road.
All right, Mr. Smith.
Yes, the request is to rezone a property to R3 medium density multifamily residential. The property is approximately 10.25 acres in size. The property is currently vacant at this time. The R3 zoning does accommodate buildings up to 8 units per structure or 2 family dwellings. There are no overlay districts that affect this parcel. There's an identified trail corridor through the property, and that easement shall be provided with the development of this property for that future trail. There are environmental features identified on the property and shall be further reviewed and permitted by the appropriate agency. The comprehensive plan does note this property future land use as parks and recreation based on the surrounding land uses of single family, commercial, R4 high density residential, industrial, mobile home district. Staff has proposed and felt that the R3 zoning does offer appropriate transitional zoning between those uses. Staff did recommend approval based on staff's findings. At the Planning Zoning Commission, the vote was a tie, so a clear direction from the commission was not achieved based on their first recommendation. Happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for Mr. Smith? Mr. Gardner.
Just repeat what I think I heard you say. There are no overlay districts on this. So the overlay district that was proposed for the first parcel that's on the west side, that overlay district is entirely in that one parcel.
That is correct, and to clarify, that is a different overlay district than our overlay districts that are already identified in our ordinances.
Right.
So this is a separate overlay, but it applies to the
Yeah,
previous.
there are no current overlay districts in any of the 3 parcels,
Right.
but the one that's proposed, which will be discussed at the next meeting, is only in the westernmost parcel.
At this time.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions for Mr. Smith? Thank you, sir. Would the applicant like to speak?
All right, Chris Kinnard, 2107 East Rockhurst. So I don't want to get outside the purpose of rezoning, but there's been comments about that actually be part of the platting process. So concerned about water runoff and things like that. So no different than the applicant before with Natural Bridge, will be required by statute and through code to build that per code. So just like before, we would have to have the SWIP, which is the stormwater protection plan, and we would have to, and DNR will be involved. We won't be allowed to have any more runoff off of that property than is currently running off that property. So that's calculated, it's engineered, calculated, and we'll have to build that to suit that specification. Our goal is to have a very nice development with well-vetted tenants. We will own the property, we'll maintain the property, and that's the intent. So no different than the one before. We have a preliminary plat or preliminary concept for an R3 development, and we would very much like to be able to do that. So any questions? I'm happy to answer.
Are there any questions for the applicant? Thank you, sir. All right, is there anyone else here this evening that would like to speak? I just ask that if you do come up and speak, any new testimony be brought forward.
Charlie Williams, 2812 North 24th Street, Ozark Heights. This city and county has some tremendous problems because of economic growth. You got a good problem in all the growth. My question is very paramount. There's talk of an interchange at Longview and 65 Highway at some point. How in the world can you improve Longview Street Road from 60, if you go 65 on west? The traffic now is getting bad, and coming out of our subdivision, people are driving faster and faster, so you have to really scoot to get out of there. Traffic is going to be a major, major concern, and I don't know how you can improve Longview Street to make it safe. And also oppose this rezoning behind my house. And I stand on my previous statements, but I don't need to go through that again, do I?
No, sir.
No.
You're on record.
All
Yes,
right,
sir.
thank you.
Thank you. Any additional comments? Yes, sir.
I'm Charles Chastain at 2512 North Ozark Circle. If you ever drive there down 22nd Street towards CC in the morning or in the evening or even at lunch today, it took me 4 times to get through the light. That's how bad the traffic is. Our infrastructure cannot support multifamily at that section or anything right now. We need to build up our infrastructure on 22nd Street and 20th Street and Longview so we can actually support it.
Yes, sir. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Philip Webb, 2808 North 24th Street. We talk about water runoff. I have grandchildren that live in Ozark Heights, and in our floodplain area, when it rains real hard, they kayak in there, and this is right at their back property line. So any extra runoff. And I don't know how you can say there won't be any extra runoff than what's there now, because what's there now is a lot of beautiful trees. It's grass, and it's not anything else there. It's not like an asphalt jungle with a top on it. It's all grass. I don't know how you can say there's not going to be any more runoff there. That should be a concern for all of us there. Another thing I just wanted to say, there's 146 homes in Ozark Heights, and there's a little over 1,200 people live there. That's a bunch of people. We like it there. We all get along. We great. And the people on the west side of us, Cowley Springs, are great people. We appreciate them. They work with us in every way. The people that are south of us, Mulberry Ridge and Creek Bridge, they're working with us and building some new homes there. And we appreciate them. We get along with all these people, and we do our very best to do that. And we want to get along with whoever's on the west side, but I really want to make sure that it's single family homes, and I'm opposed to anything that would be other than that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Any additional comments from the Board of Aldermen? Mr. Campbell.
I was wondering if you would ask Mr. McCart to come up, and I know a lot of people don't understand why you don't have more runoff. It's a amount versus amount in a certain time, but I think John, Mr. McCart would better answer that question, just to clarify it.
Yes, sir. Mr. McCart, the floor is yours.
Yes, so in the process of when we get construction plans, we will be presented with a stormwater prevention plan and then calculations of stormwater. It is our duty to make sure that the developer does not create any more runoff off of his site onto his neighboring parcels. So he would have to then he'd be required to detain that water and release it at the same rate or less rate to the neighboring properties. And that would all go through our stormwater engineers, Cochran, and make sure and review those calculations, and he would not be approved for development until he met those requirements.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. Any additional comments one last time for the audience? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Gardner. Go right ahead.
Well, not from the audience, but yeah, I've got a comment. I'm not sure that everybody in Ozark Heights is aware of this, but you probably are, because we just recently passed in April transportation sales tax, a renewal of the transportation sales tax that we've had for the last 5 years. and it was passed by about a 70% margin. So I imagine a lot of you all voted and 70% of the people voted for it. But in that, in doing that for the next 5 years, we've got sales tax revenue coming into the city, which we have dedicated. I mean, it is literally dedicated only to transportation. And we have used that in the past 5 years to do projects with MoDOT. And we have on our list of projects, now it hasn't been approved yet by MoDOT, but hopefully it will be, to improve the North 22nd Street and CC interchange. I know it's terrible, and I agree with you all. I do business up there with one of the businesses, and I'm up there often, and it is a terrible intersection. I agree, and any more traffic would make it worse. There's no argument there. But that is a state highway intersection, and when there is a major safety issue, it is not unusual for our request for projects that would eliminate some of that safety issue and the traffic to be approved. But the transportation sales tax allows us to put in our part, because if you'll remember when we passed this the first time and we passed this the last time, most of those projects are cost share. The state will say, we'll do part of this, but we won't do any of it if you don't pay your share. And we don't have our share without the transportation sales tax. Now that we've got it for the next 5 years, we have put that intersection on the list of projects that need to be improved. So hopefully, and this isn't a promise because it has to be approved by MoDOT, but they have to approve the plans and we have the money to do our share. So I'm just for the record, that is what we're doing about the traffic.
All right, one last chance in the audience. Any additional comments? Just want to make sure everybody gets their opportunity. Hearing none, this bill will be held over to the next legislative session. Mr. Flores.
Move that we place bill 3378 on its first reading by title and description only.
Motion was made by Alderman Flores, seconded by Alderman Campbell, to place bill number 3378 on its first reading by title and description only. All those in favor?
An ordinance amending the zoning code and official map by changing the zoning classification of certain property 4.75 acres in size bordered by Longview Road.
Mr. Smith.
Yes, this is the third zoning request in your packet this evening. The request again is for R3 medium density zoning, multifamily residential. The property is approximately 4.75 acres in size. The property is currently vacant as well. The R3 zoning does accommodate buildings up to 8 units per building or 2 family dwellings. There are no overlay districts that affect this property. There is an identified trail corridor through this property as well, and so the easement shall be required at the time of development. There are environmental features on this property as well, and like the others, they will be further reviewed and approved by the appropriate agencies. The comprehensive plan does note this parcel as parks and open space. The surrounding land uses on this parcel in the city is single family, commercial, R4 high density, residential, industrial, and mobile home district. The proposed R3 zoning would, in addition to the others, make an appropriate transition between those less intense to more intense uses. Based on staff's report and staff's findings, staff did recommend approval. The Planning and Zoning Commission did recommend denial 4-1 with 1 abstention.
All right, does the board have any questions for Mr. Smith? Thank you, sir. Would the applicant like to speak?
Chris Kinner, 2107 East Rockhurst. No different than before, just another piece, the smaller piece to the east of the same development. No change. I mean, it's all part. Our concept is one development for the entire 25 acres. So.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to provide new testimony? Go right ahead, sir.
Chris Goodfellow, 2306 Lakeside Court, representing Ozark Heights Homeowners Association. So it was mentioned that there is the plan for some road development to improve the traffic conditions, but I believe that was identified at a 5-year approximate plan, which I would assume that this development is not going to wait for. So that doesn't help anything right now. That's basically putting a Band-Aid on an arterial bleed. We'll get all these people in with an R3 multi-unit. And I believe the previous time at the zoning hearing, it was something like 96 units was at the estimate at that point. So we'll have what, 180 to 200 plus cars trying to make it in and out of those areas instead of what this would support if it were R1. So that's what I would like to bring up as the additional point. If we're talking 5 years for roadway work to support what's already an issue and has been an issue for quite some time, adding 8 units, eight doors per unit, and we only have the single story conditional overlay on the first 250 feet. So that means those will be 1 story. But then everything after that's going to be what, 2, 3 story, whatever the max is in order to get the most dollars. I understand it's a business. You want to make the most money per foot you can out of it. And your target demographic is not going to match up to the rest of the surrounding area. And it was brought up previously, and you can see it right here on the zoning to the south of it as well is R1. So again, I just ask that instead of zoning R3, put R1. It makes sense. And if there's no issue with being single story, dual unit, R1 supports that. You can have an R1 and put duplexes in. R1D is what is allowed for that. So there's no reason to go to R3 to support duplexes. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Anyone at all?
Yes.
Mr. Gardner.
Just a clarification, Mr. Goodfellow, I think, said that R1D or C would support, or D would support duplexes. That's not true. R2 is duplexes, or R1P is patio homes, but.
That's our.
Okay.
But it's asking for clarification, Mr. Smith, it's saying you put duplexes in single family on.
No, to clarify as well, R2 is duplexes allowed in this R3. R1P is considered single family. That is a patio home. That is not a 2-family. Though that is a different zoning than R1A, B, C, or D. It has its own zoning. And again, it is single family, but it's built like a 2-family, but it has a firewall between the 2 units. Does that help clarify?
Perfect. Thank you for the clarification. Any additional comments on this bill this evening? If there's no additional comments by the board, this bill will be held over till the next legislative session. Mr. Campbell. I'm all into making notes. This helps me remember everything. Go right ahead, sir.
Okay. I make a motion that we place bill number 3379 on its first reading by title only.
Second.
Motion was made by Alderman Campbell, seconded by Alderman Gardner to place bill number 3379 on its first reading by title and description only. All those in favor?
An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission to provide work zone enforcement.
All right, who's going to take this one? Captain Hill. All right, perfect.
Yes, sir.
Talk to us.
This is basically a grant that allows us to
to come and do enforcement at MoDOT's request. It's not something we proactively do. It's, if they have certain types of construction occurring, we will go, we will either place a car there or work enforcement to slow down people, stuff like that.
Okay.
It's an extended grant. I think it's 5 years. Is that right? So it's whatever project they have going on in the area at the time, and it spans however long, 5 year, whatever's going on within that 5 years.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Captain Hill? You did an excellent job explaining that.
Thank you. I've been listening and just taking everything in here.
Pardon me. Any questions, comments from the board? Anyone in the audience here that would like to speak on this bill? Hearing no comments from the audience and no further questions from the board, this bill will be held over until the next legislative session. Okay, that's the end of the first reading of bills. Let's jump. No? Yeah, resolutions. There are none. Second, I should probably just put my glasses on so I can see what I'm reading. Second reading of bills, and final passage of bills. Mr. Galloway.
Your Honor, going since 2 hours, I move we take a 5-minute recess.
Let's do that. Take a 5-minute recess. We'll be right back. We should have taken numbers, maybe. Everybody's mass exodus. He took a recess. He's losing his Reese's. All right, we got one more coming back in.
Yeah.
See, I stole your Reese's and I raised you. Snicker.
Yeah.
All right, let's go, Mr. Galloway.
Your Honor, I move that we place bill number 3360 on its second reading by title only.
Motion was made by Alderman Galloway, seconded by Alderman Flores to place bill number 3360 on its second reading by title and description only. All those in favor?
An amended ordinance amending the municipal code of the city of Ozark, Missouri, section 14030, general guidelines regarding sale of surplus goods and real property.
All right. Any member of the Board of Aldermen have any additional comments, questions, or concerns with regards to this bill? Did you have a question, comment, or concern? Your light was flashing. All right.
The one in interest.
All right. No worries. No worries. All right. Not hearing any questions or concerns. Mr. Galloway?
Your Honor, I move that we enact bill number 3360 as ordinance number -029.
Correct. Motion was made by Alderman Galloway, seconded by Alderman Gardner to enact bill number 3360 as ordinance number 22-029. May I get a roll call vote, please?
Alderman Campbell. Aye. Alderman Elder. Aye. Alderman Snyder.
Aye.
Alderman Galloway.
Abstain.
Alderman Gardner. Aye. We have five votes, one abstention, motion carries.
All right, Mr. Galloway.
Your Honor, I move that we place bill number 3361 on its second reading by title only.
Second.
Motion was made by Alderman Galloway, seconded by Alderman Flores, place bill number 3361 on its second reading by title and description only. All those in favor? Oh, sorry, I flipped somebody else's on. There we go.
An ordinance
Gotcha.
amending the municipal code of the city of Ozark, Missouri, section 340-230, means of operating a motor vehicle on school property.
All right, any additional questions, comments, or concerns since the last legislative session with regards to this bill? Hearing none.
Your Honor, I move that we enact bill number 3361 as ordinance number 22-029, 30.
Second.
Motion was made by Alderman Galloway, seconded by Alderman Flores to enact bill number 3361 as ordinance number 22-030. May I get a roll call vote, please?
Alderman Flores.
Aye.
Alderman Elder. Aye. Alderman Gardner. Aye. Alderman Campbell.
Aye.
Alderman Galloway.
Aye.
Alderman Snyder.
Aye.
We have 6 aye votes, motion carries.
You're on a roll.
All right, Your Honor, I move that we place bill number 3362 on its second reading by title only.
Second.
Motion was made by Alderman Galloway, seconded by Alderman Flores to place bill number 3362 on its second reading by title and description only. All those in favor?
An ordinance amending the municipal code of the city of Ozark, Missouri, section 365-35, parking permits, issuance fees, administration, and designated delivery vehicle spaces.
All right, any additional questions, comments, or concerns from the board regarding this bill since the last legislative session? Hearing none.
Your Honor, I move that we enact Bill number 3362 is ordinance number 22-031.
Second.
Motion was made by Alderman Galloway, seconded by Alderman Flores to enact Bill number 3362 as ordinance number 22-031. May I get a roll call, please?
Alderman Snyder.
Aye.
Alderman Gardner. Alderman Alder. Alderman Galloway.
Aye.
Alderman Campbell.
Aye.
Alderman Flores.
Aye.
We have 6 aye votes, motion carries.
Whenever you're ready, sir.
Your Honor, I move that we place Bill 3363 on its second reading by title only.
Second.
Vote it.
Motion was made by Alderman Galloway, seconded by Alderman Flores to place Bill number 3363 on its second reading by title and description only. All those in favor?
An ordinance amending the municipal code of the city of Ozark, Missouri, section 370-190, headgear required, motorcycles or motor tricycles, by repealing language preempted by state law.
Any additional questions, comments, or concerns regarding this bill since the last legislative session? Hearing none.
Your Honor, I move that we enact. Well. Bill number 3363 as ordinance number 22-032.
Motion was made by Alderman Galloway, seconded by Alderman Gardner to enact Bill number 3363 as ordinance number 22-032. May I get a roll call vote, please?
Alderman Gardner. Alderman Snyder. Alderman Campbell.
Aye.
Alderman Galloway.
Aye.
Alderman Alder. Alderman Flores.
Aye.
We have 6 aye votes, motion carries.
One more for you, Mr. Galloway.
Your Honor, I move that we place Bill number 3364 on its second reading by title only.
Second.
Motion was made by Alderman Galloway, seconded by Alderman Flores to place Bill number 3364 on a second reading by title and description only. All those in favor?
An ordinance amending the municipal code of the city of Ozark, Missouri, chapter 390, boats, by repealing language preempted by state law.
All right. Have the members of the Board of Aldermen have any additional questions, comments, or concerns with regards to this bill since the last legislative session? Hearing none.
Your Honor, I move that we enact Bill number 3364 as ordinance number 22-033.
Motion was made by Alderman Galloway, seconded by Alderman Gardner to enact Bill number 3364 as ordinance number 22-033. May I get a roll call vote, please?
Alderman Flores.
Aye.
Alderman Gardner. Alderman Galloway.
Aye.
Alderman Snyder.
Aye.
Alderman Alder. Alderman Campbell.
Aye.
We have 6 aye votes, motion carries.
Perfect. Well, I'd like to thank you all for taking time to look over those bills that I presented after I read the ordinance book. And since you've changed the laws in a positive way, I'm going to start reading the ordinance book again. I'll bring you some more, maybe. Sound good? All right. Sometimes I get bored. I like to know what the book says. Oh, usually 2 or 3 hours a day. All right. Mr. Gardner, it's your turn.
Move with Bill 3365 on second reading.
Second.
Motion was made by Alderman Gardner, seconded by Alderman Flores, place bill number 3365 on its second reading by title and description only. All those in favor?
An ordinance authorizing the city to enter into and execute an intergovernmental agreement with the Ozarks Transportation Organization for project management of the construction of the Chadwick Flyer Phase 2 trail improvements.
All right. Any of the members of the Board of Aldermen have any additional questions, comments, or concerns with regards to this bill since the last legislative session? Hearing none. Mr. Gardner,
I move that we adopt bill 3365 as ordinance 2-034. Second.
motion was made by Alderman Gardner, and seconded by Alderman Flores, to adopt bill number 3365 as ordinance number 22-034. May I get a roll call vote, please?
Yes, Alderman, Alderman Elder. Alderman Gardner. Alderman Galloway.
Aye.
Alderman Campbell.
Aye.
Alderman Snyder. Alderman Flores.
Aye.
We have 6 aye votes, motion carries.
And again, Mr. Gardner.
I move that we bill 3366 second reading.
Second.
Motion was made by Alderman Gardner, seconded by Alderman Galloway, to place bill number 3366 on its second reading by title and description only. All those in favor?
An ordinance authorizing the city to enter into and execute a highway infrastructure program coronavirus response and relief agreement with the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission for the construction of the Chadwick Flyer Phase 2 trail improvements.
Do the Board of Aldermen have any additional questions, comments, or concerns with regards to this bill since the last legislative session? Hearing none. Would you like to adopt this, Mr. Gardner?
Oh, yes.
Is it past your bedtime, sir?
I move that we adopt bill 3366 as ordinance 22-034.
Second.
Motion was made by Alderman Gardner, seconded by Alderman Galloway, to adopt bill number 3366 as ordinance number 22-035. May I get a roll call vote, please?
Alderman Galloway.
Aye.
Alderman Campbell.
Aye.
Alderman Flores.
Aye.
Alderman Alder. Alderman Snyder.
Aye.
Alderman Gardner.
Aye.
We have 6 aye votes, motion carries.
Mr. Campbell.
I move to place bill number 3367 on its first reading by title. I'm sorry, second reading. Second.
Motion was made by Alderman Campbell, seconded by Alderman Flores. Place bill number 3367 on its second reading by title and description only. All those in favor?
An ordinance authorizing the city to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with the Missouri State Highway Patrol for participation in certain law enforcement task force activities.
All right. Do the Board of Aldermen have any additional questions, comments, or concerns regarding this bill since the last legislative session? Hearing none.
I move to adopt bill number 3367 as ordinance number 22-036.
Second.
Motion was made by Alderman Campbell, seconded by Alderman Flores, to adopt bill number 3367 as ordinance number 22-036. Can I get a roll call vote, please?
Alderman Snyder.
Aye.
Alderman Flores.
Aye.
Alderman Galloway.
Aye.
Alderman Alder. Alderman Gardner.
Aye.
Alderman Campbell.
Aye.
We have 6 aye votes, motion carries.
Okay. Because this next bill concerns the office that I currently hold, I'm going to be excusing myself from the meeting, turning the floor over to the Mayor Pro Tem.
Mr. Campbell.
I move to place bill number 3368 on its second reading by title only.
Second.
Motion was made by Alderman Campbell to put bill 3368 on its second reading by title only, and seconded by Alderman Alder. All those in favor? Sorry, I always miss that.
An ordinance amending the municipal code of the city of Ozark, Missouri, section 110-175, salaries fixed by ordinance to increase mayor's salary.
Turn this over to. Is there any questions or any concerns or comments by the board? Alderman Snyder.
I don't think it's the right time. That's my opinion. I do not believe that this is the appropriate time to increase any type of salary. It's nothing against, the proposal, but the fact that we have a tax potentially going on the ballot in the fall, and we just passed a tax, I just do not believe this is the appropriate time to do this. That's my opinion, and that's where I stay with it.
Any other comments?
No comment.
Yes, there was some talk after the last meeting about whether that was too much or if it was the right amount. And having done that for 6 years, I think that $900 is certainly not enough. But I hadn't thought about what Mr. Snyder just said, and I think that makes sense. I think it would, as much as I think that the office needs a raise, I don't think this is the right time in view of the tax we just passed and the one that we're going to be asking. At least it's going to come up for, discussion at the July meeting. So, yes, I, for that reason and that reason only, I'm not in favor.
Alderman Alder.
Would the board be more comfortable with a different amount, a little bit lower?
It's not the appropriate time. I agree that there could be an increase. I understand there's been a significant amount of time since the last increase. I just don't believe now is the time to be doing that. It's perception. We're trying to do things for these folks right now. And I do not want to put a sour taste in their mouth by they're going to look at it as taking what we're giving them and giving to somebody else. I don't want that. I think we need to move forward with what we have and then address this. That's my opinion. So I'm definitely not in favor of it.
Mr. Campbell.
I'm ready to move on the vote.
Okay.
So I move to adopt bill number 3368 as ordinance number 22-037.
Do I have a second? Without a second, motion dies.
All right. Mr. Gardner.
All right, I move that we put bill 3371 on the second reading by title only.
Second.
Motion was made by, pardon me, Alderman Gardner, second by Alderman Flores, place bill number 3371 on its second reading by title and description only. All those in favor?
An ordinance amending the fee per linear foot for sidewalk improvements regarding section 410, 330C, optional fee in lieu of construction.
All right. Give me just 1 second. Are there any additional questions, comments, or concerns with regards to this bill since the last legislative session? All right, hearing none.
Right. We get down bill 3371 as ordinance 22037.
Second.
All right, motion was made by Alderman Gardner, second by Alderman Flores to adopt bill number 3371 as ordinance number 22-037. Can I get a roll call vote, please?
Alderman Gardner.
Aye.
Alderman Snyder.
Aye.
Alderman Flores.
Aye.
Alderman Galloway.
Aye.
Alderman Campbell.
Nay.
Alderman Alder. We have 5 aye votes, 1 nay vote, motion carries.
All right, report of officers, boards and committees. Mr. Childers.
Well, Mayor, I don't know after all of that, what else I could say, actually. The duck race was good. It was hot. If you could add some air conditioning next time, it'd be great, but I know that's not part of it.
As soon as you.
Three little ones down there, I'm gonna melt it. Thank you all for taking the time to do this. We had 439 pages in the packet this time, and that's a thick packet, so way to hang in there. That's all I gotta say. Huh? Plus 140 on top of the 439? I was gonna say, then you broke another record there because. Yeah, okay. No, I have nothing else, Mr. Mayor.
All right, perfect, thank you. Planning and Development Director, Mr. Smith. Any questions for Mr. Smith? All right. Deputy City Administrator Samantha Payne, do you have anything additional? Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Payne? Miscellaneous comments? Oh, go right ahead.
I noticed that it's posted on our website now that the inclusion park opens next Thursday, Friday, the 30th. What day is Thursday? Okay. And I just want to say that.
Appreciate it. Yeah, there'll be a ribbon cutting at noon.
At noon, I will send out a press release, but we've posted the event, but everyone should have just the invitation right now, but it is the 30th at noon.
Perfect. Mark your calendar. All right. Any other questions, comments, concerns, Board of Alderman? We do have a meeting tomorrow evening, 5 p.m. at the Christian County Ambulance District. So I don't think we have a formal meeting per se necessarily like we've had in the past few sessions, but that we will be there to be able to listen to them and potentially ask some questions during part of their meeting. So. No, ma'am. You bet. Okay. There you go. That is important.
More details.
Yeah. Here in Ozark. Yep.
You did the wise move. Do what I did. Recline on the next box.
There you go. Not to take anything away from our guys in the fire department, but perfect. Any additional comments, questions, concerns from the board? Hearing none, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion was made by Alderman Galloway, seconded by Alderman Alder to adjourn this legislative session. All those in favor? All right, perfect. We'll see you next time.